based upon that, the concept that God, if you imagine the universe as a kind of like a beautiful brain, yeah, and the brain is made of 5 textures of God's love. It gives life, and there are 5 textures to that love. So God's love comes across in 5 primary ways. So, gosh, how do I move to the next one? Okay. Anyway, gosh. So the 3 main types of forgiveness. We forgive others on a daily basis. My wife has to forgive me regularly. We forgive others for past events. Sometimes we couldn't process at that moment something that went wrong in a way that allowed us to forgive. So we got to go back and fix that. And we've got to learn to forgive ourselves. Some of us are more judgmental of the things we do wrong. And of course the 3 are connected. If you haven't kind of forgiven for the past, often that makes it difficult to forgive on a daily basis. And if you can't forgive yourself, it's often complicated to forgive others. Okay. So in previous talks, I talked about the fact that Christianity and the world itself shows that God's love comes in 5 primary textures, and we can see that in nature, and we can see that in our own lives. So when I've given an example before, for example, birds, in order for birds to flourish, they have to kind of exhibit 5 types of love. And they nurture their children, they protect their children and themselves. They build their nests in a sensible space. They work together as a team to raise their kids, and they do creative things. They might sing or swoop or dance together, all kinds of things to keep there. And we see these 5 textures when you understand these 5 textures, we see them in every human successful endeavor, right? So a successful society knows how to protect quite well the population, protect from lawlessness. It understands something about nurturing people. It tries to run itself sensibly. People try to work together under certain rules, international rules, or work constructively together. And creativity is allowed and is encouraged. And you can apply this to a garden, to every human system. And if one is missing, like if there's no nurturing or there's no protection or it's not sensible, the system ultimately weakens or can even collapse. So for example, in a marriage, if there's not enough team player going on, then often the marriage struggles, or if you're not creatively enjoying each other and looking after the love in the relationship, the marriage can also collapse. Or yeah, so these kind of things, and it's so God's love is expressed, and to become temples of God, we are constantly encouraged to learn to do these things better. And some of us are better at nurturing, and some of us are better at creativity, and some of us are better at team player. But in a kind of some situation like a marriage, then you're going to have to be kind of reasonably good at all 5 for the system to be happy and to be flourishing. And so life is constantly a challenge to become a temple of God's 5 textures of God's love. Okay. So what does this mean for forgiveness? It means that God forgives. When you think about how God forgives us when we're doing something wrong, when he has to deal with children who are rebellious or doing something wrong, God has to find mental processes to get past these things so that he can love again. So Jesus kind of gives this metaphor of the sun shines on the wicked and the good. And And when you think about a flower, you walk past a flower, even if you're the most evil person on earth, the flower is still shining brightly for you and giving its love and saying, you know, I can find something good in you, and I'm willing to try to keep giving for you. And it is God's throughout after the fall of man, God has to find new ways to forgive human beings, so that he could keep giving in the hope that we would one day understand that our goal is to become his temple, yeah, God's temple. And it's been a long journey for us to grow better at this. And Christianity, because it represents these 5 types of love, has built incredible societies, which other nations struggle to achieve. And we're now losing these things because we're not reading the Bible, things like that. Yeah. So we're becoming an unforgiving example. The woke culture is very unforgiving of people who don't agree with them, for example. Right. So nurturing parent forgiveness, what does that mean? You know, how does God, when he wakes up in the morning, says, "Oh, here's Stephen. You know, what hope have I got for Stephen?" You know. So God gives, you know, I walk out the door and God gets he says, "Oh, the sun, I'm still shining my sun, I'm still doing my flowers for you." And so, you know, I do that, I use that method. And if something goes wrong in my relationship with Barbara, I try to get the positives going again. And most times you just forget, you forgive because you forget, you're just gonna move on past it. Or God kind of thinks, well, what there must be something good in Stephen that will allow me to love him again. And so what do I appreciate? So you know, I can, if something goes wrong, I can try to find new ways to appreciate. So I again let go of what went wrong. A lot of times we interpret something wrongly. Something happens and we interpret it wrongly. Yeah. And so we've got to clarify. If we clarify an interpretation, for example, if somebody did something that hurt us and we're hurt, we can go and we can listen to them and talk and just kind of like, you know, move and say, learn about their childhood, learn about their past. And the more we understand their difficulties and challenges, especially, then the more easier it is to say, well, they had a tough childhood. Not wonder they're struggling to love and give. And I can just move beyond that. Or you can also think about how it's nurturing you. If something happens to you, there's often a reason for that happening. And the universe is trying to say you're getting something wrong, and this God is working on through this person to say, you know, you've got something that needs to change about yourself. What needs to be improved? If you can find that, then you can forgive the person, because that person has learned because you've learned how to relate better with that person, and you realize that. So sometimes we have to be very protective and use a protective parent in order to restore the relationship. For example, I can forgive somebody, but something has to change. You know, I have to. We have to do things differently so this doesn't happen again. You know, I'm kind of a unificationist at heart, and we've always just shared everything. But when I moved back home next to my mother, she's not as sharing. So when I took things without asking, and I gave without asking, and quite quickly things became kind of broken down. And she said, you know, we got to stop breaking this down, and we got to forgive each other. And so now I have to really ask, and things like this. Often indemnity needs to be paid, so trust can come again. For example, sometimes we have to repay for what we broke, or we do prison time, and then society says, okay, well we'll forgive you based upon that. If some infidelity has taken place, often couples can go to counseling, and it can take 2 years to rebuild the trust, and often the relationship is stronger, for example. Then God can also think about how he uses just being sensible to forgive. So maybe I was partly to blame. Did I provoke? ask the person, we can go to the person who's hurt us and say, did I do something wrong which caused you this? And if we find out we did, we stepped on some boundary, like I said with my mother, I can say I'm sorry, yeah, instead of blaming the other. Sometimes their motivation was good, but the way they made a mistake, they made a mistake in execution. They got upset, or they, was a bit too strong in their reaction. And again, we can talk about that and say, I try to heal that. Sometimes people, just because of situations they're in, they come to work, or you're working in a team with your studies, and the person, there's something reason why they're not performing up to standard. Maybe they've got some illness, maybe they've got some problems at home, maybe they're hungry, maybe their car broke down, etc., etc. And so often it's really good to talk to people, when you're hurt, and just try to understand, what happened there. Another method, of course, is just fairness. We're all learners. He's just learning. He's just learning. I can deal with that. We all make mistakes. We all lose or break things. So, as we raise the kids, Barbara and I, we really discussed, and we said, we will not, if anything gets broken, if the kids break anything, or, something gets lost, there's no blame here. We try not to assign blame, because it's just a mistake. Nobody purposely goes around crashing cars. My wife, so, she might, a few times she's kind of had a dent or something like that. And she'll walk in the door and her head down, and kind of like, something happened again. I can see it, and I just hug, but there's no, you have to say, just realize that this is, but in some homes people really attack each other, and it doesn't help. It doesn't change anybody's behavior. But you can also use your creativity to forgive. So, some methods, like if I was going to join a team sometimes, and I knew there were some problems, there would be some problems, for example, I would say, okay, so I'm going to, I know there's going to be a few problems, and I'm going to forgive it. When they happen, I'm just going to, I forgive you already. And so when it happens, I go, oh yeah, that was on my list of, things I will forgive, and I just let it go. You can do that in a marriage too. I will forgive my spouse for these things. And then when anything happens, you say, I'm sure that was on the list, and and let go. You can also vividly imagine. You can go to meditation and imagine the person apologizing to you and being remorseful. And actually, that's a kind of healing experience, because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between real and unreal. It just knows that something's happened, and sometimes that can help people. Writing a letter can really help, explaining exactly what went wrong, but offering forgiveness. That really helps, especially with past pains. And so there's all kinds of ways of forgiving, and some work in different situations, and some are better than others. But the better we become at all of them. The something happens, and then it just kind of like flows through the brain. It's kind of like it gets processed by one of the pre-existing forgiveness patterns, and you find yourself just letting it go. There was a time in our marriage, my wife was very stressed, and it was complicated, but we could what I would do is basically say, tomorrow I'll forgive her. So why don't I forgive her now? Kind of, I know I'm going to let go tomorrow. So the better I got at that, the more I could just, let it go almost immediately, even though before it would take me 2 or 3 days. Of course, we got to learn to forgive ourselves, and very similar points appear, and I'm doing better. I had a tough childhood. I've got good points to appreciate despite my weaknesses. What can I do to make sure this doesn't happen again, etc. I've been under stress. You can say sorry to the people you hurt, etc. So anyway, So there we go. Okay, does that make sense? There's different textures. Yeah. So we have some questions for you to discuss in your groups. But any questions you have, I don't know, on this? Anybody? All silent.
Like questionless. I guess I'll put the questions in the chat. There's quite a few questions. Did you? Okay, yeah. Let's try and get through as many as we can, I guess. There's like.
You got some questions?
Pardon?
You got some questions?
Oh, no. The ones you had for us.
Oh, right. Okay. You want to take that? Okay. Well, good luck. Happy discussing. I hope you can all be open and trusting and have a good time. Good. See you later.
Yeah, I'm gonna put them in the chat for you guys. That second question has like 5 parts to it. So they're just scenarios and you play them through. And then there's some more questions. Awesome.
Okay. So can you see that? That goes
yeah, that
1,
goes to everyone.
And then there's a 2. I've accidentally put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. Okay.
Yeah,
Which
all
is like 5 different situations. And then you go 3, 4, 5.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Happy discussions, everybody. Yeah. Well. Bye.
Bye.
Did you want to go into a group?
If you want to, you don't have to let me. It's up to you. It's up to you. I can stay out.
I mean, I guess there's.
They've been very open about sharing. It's nice to listen, but I don't want to.
Yeah, there's 45 minutes, so you can also just chill out if you're okay with that.
Okay. See you later, Alex.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice
Thank you, Dad.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Important for us to reach such a high standard in this area of life. Why is it important that we learn the art of forgiveness? Quite an intense one.
Yeah. Like you need to think about it, like
I guess we can ask, usually in science, we ask like a counter hypothesis or anti-hypothesis, which is what happens if you don't reach that standard in that life of being able to forgive someone if they do something wrong, and what effects might have on you.
I mean, I've always, oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I've always or you always hear how forgiving is not just, is mostly for you, like that it's easier for you. Yeah, but honestly, I feel like I've never really made such an experience, or I don't get the statement emotionally. It's just like in my head, I understand it. And it's like, of course, it can be a burden if you hold grudges against someone. Yeah, the only way I can understand forgiveness is just like, I guess, letting go more. I don't know, maybe because I never got into a situation, but there was this one time where I was like, there was some situation with my mom, and I felt it was like on my mind a lot. And then I think after a while, I just realized, okay, I need to let go. And then I did. And then I realized, okay, actually, that was some kind of forgiving. Like, I think that was my first time really experiencing me consciously forgiving someone, because like, I mean, I was younger at that time, but the term forgiveness was like kind of like not so tangible, because it's just, how do you forgive someone? Like you can't just be like, oh, okay, it's fine what they did. It's you, like, I think you need to, yeah, process that with yourself. But I think after letting go was definitely just a relief. Yeah, something came to my mind.
I agree, but I feel like for me, when I forgive people and then for some reason something similar has happened, I feel more, I guess it's harder to keep on giving a valid reason at times to fully give like full trust or full forgiveness if you've been disappointed more than once from the same situation. So with the first one about why is it such an important to reach a high standard, it's hard to say, because if you forgive and you're feeling good about yourself, it's good. But then as soon as it happens again, it kind of comes back. And it's not that you haven't fully forgive, it's just the whole form of communication hasn't really been heard or hasn't really fully been received, I guess, from the other end of the situation. And I think that sometimes it's harder to forgive more than once, I think, or to fully forgive more than once. You kind of just push on the back burner, but you don't really fully forgive. But then it does also help you feel better about yourself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it definitely is like hard, especially if it's like not the proper communication. You say, oh, this hurt me last time, please try not to do it again. There can also be that kind of form of communication to help decrease the chances of it happening again. If you're like openly communicating. Though I guess Stephen was saying that like his wife, my mum, tends to maybe do things repetitively each time. She kind of does it again and again, and it's something he'll have to live with for the rest of his life. So he can either hold it inside himself and never forgive her and always have this internal kind of hatred, or then kind of just kind of be able to forgive her for it.
I wouldn't say it's hatred. That's the thing. Hatred is a strong word. And I feel like forgiving someone for yet say forgetting to message you on one day when they said they will, for example, compared to having hatred because you can't forgive, it's a massive jump.
It is. Sorry, I didn't mean it in that way.
You know, of thing. And I feel like when, I don't know if it's fair to say, I don't know if it's easier to forgive, I don't know, never mind, I'm not going to say it, it makes no sense, moving on.
Yeah, the reason I brought up hatred is because the question is kind of saying violently kill your spouse or children. So like that, it's quite it's quite easy to feel hatred, I guess. It's quite a.
I mean, if someone doesn't, I'll be worried, because I think that would be everyone's natural instinct would be.
Actually, mine would be what I did wrong, that something like that could happen.
That's guilt then, I guess. But like that's also as good in some senses, but you shouldn't let it overwhelm you. Like you should think about it and then try and live up to that standard, but not let it overtake your life, I guess.
Yeah, I know, but I think I wouldn't be like feel hatred towards that person, but I would be probably angry at myself.
What do you mean?
Do you mean like, oh, what could you have done to stop it?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But then you're just gonna be angry at yourself for your the rest of your life.
But then it's something you can't explain. So you put it onto an object which you can explain to help you process it. So I get where you're coming from. So yeah.
I mean, this is like an extreme example.
Yeah, it is.
But there's more than just like
Yeah,
about
it's
it's more than just about forgiving others.
actually, yeah, I can like answer the second question like in one, like at once, because I'm that kind of person who doesn't expect anything from other people, like nothing at all. So because I don't expect them like to do good to me, it's usually like really I'm happy, but I know that people might have like bad day, or for some reason they maybe don't like me or something. So I don't actually even like blame them when they do something to me, and actually I don't really care, but not in sense that I'm happy that like someone like did something like hurtful to me, but it's like I cannot change that person. It's not my responsibility, and only thing I can change is me and like some in my life to a certain extent, because there are also other people or things that like influence my life. So I usually only care about things that I can change directly, sometimes even about things that I can influence, but the less I can influence something, the less I care. So that's why um not I'm not really like angry at people or something.
Mm. Yeah, I guess maybe anger is a strong word as well. It can also just be something that's on your mind often, or that you use, or that I'm reminded of quite often as well. At least I know maybe in my family relationships, is my dad eats with his mouth open, and like he, does these other stuff that kind of are just like things that no normal human person would do. He like drives violently on the road. He does this other stuff, and it's just yeah. If I'm not able to process that, then I just go crazy. If I'm not able to forgive him, if he's because I've maybe told him 50, 60, 70 times to drive safer, or eat with his mouth closed, or to not deny or lie to my face, or something like that. There's all these things that, yeah, if the only thing that matters is how I process it, and I can either get angry or myself because he's doing it so often. I say, "Oh, this is the 10th time I tell you to do this," and I shout at him. I can do that, but that won't change anything. Or then I can just kind of live with it and kind of forgive it and find some inner peace and forgive it and just say that's the way he is. And yeah, I can handle it for this short period of time.
For me, I kind of just think forgiveness takes time for you to forgive them, but also for you to feel like, for example, if they've forgiven you, it's a like process. So I know I'm not gonna say I forgive this person and the next day I'm gonna feel like they've been fully forgiven. It's not gonna happen just like that. It's gonna take a couple of weeks or months or days, or even could be a year, to be able to feel like you can let it go. So my process is, I guess, it would happen one day, but just not right now, if that makes sense. Or, go down. It'll go down bit by bit till you feel like it's not it's been long enough, but you've processed it enough to be able to think, to be able to let it go yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of similar to you. I think for me, it's just like in the first place, it takes time. Like, but I guess I just like, if it happens consciously, I guess I try to understand the situation. Like for me, it's always, I feel like I need to understand the person and like what was triggering me, and like yeah, and then I think in order to do that, I think it's going to become more objective. So I guess that's something that kind of happens also with time, like when it's different when the situation just happened and when it's like happened a month ago. I think then you can also, like, at least like for me, I think I can look back differently. So yeah, it's pretty similar to what you said, Elna. Like, I think it just takes time and like, yeah, till you get that. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, just I would add that if it's someone I really trusted and it's like really someone who is close to me, then it might get quite complicated for me, because I already like experienced that person somehow, and I know how they behave and these things. And when they do something like bad to me, or I take it as like something that hurt me, then I'm actually trying to, like, I'm angry or frustrated that like, why is this happening and what's the reason? And actually I get